Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest Pro Soccer Talk. I'm your host, Joe Prince Wright, and as you can see, I'm joined by Nick Mandola and Andy Edwards in Buffalo, New York, and Kansas City, respectively. Lads, wonderful to join you once again. Another crazy weekend in the Premier League. No shortage of talking points. We've got title contenders galore, so many moments of contention. Champions League and Europa League is starting up again. So, Nick, I want to start with you, mate. How was your weekend? How are you wrapping your head around all this craziness?
It was one of those writer's nightmare weekends. So many rewrites in the last few minutes of the game. The West Ham Spurs game, I might as well have wanted to throw my computer out the window. I don't know how many times Spurs are going to give us those performances where you cannot quite believe they don't have all 3 points. So, and it was summed up by Jose Mourinho after the game in the post-match press conference, which his whole face was an expletive. He had no idea what to say. So I loved it this weekend.
Andy, what about you, mate? Did you enjoy this weekend?
Yeah, I was reminded that I have the power to affect the end of games by writing the lead to a recap. I had forgotten that since last season. It hadn't happened yet this season, but it definitely happened to me on Monday with the final game of the weekend, of course. And I thought we were going to have a day of 2 games without goals, which was just unconscionable to think about. But then Wolves pulled one back late against Leeds. And so I was able to affect that and give the world, at least one goal on Monday. It was a little bit of a down day, not the 2 best games that I've ever seen. But you know what? One is better than none.
Absolutely. And getting together with you guys is always better than watching these games and chatting about it on our own. So if you're new to Pro Soccer Talk, usually we chat about this in our own time, but the kind people, Gene and everyone else at NBC Sports, film it for us. We grab a beer. So cheers, guys. Transatlantic drink. And let's get things kicked off for Pro Soccer Talk this week. So I want to start with a big sort of breaking news topic, lads. This is a really big one to kind of wrap our head around what's going on here. But we have it up on Pro Soccer Talk at NBCSports.com. More details on this. Sky News, our partners in the UK, have broken the story that a European Premier League, something that would replace the Champions League potentially, has reportedly been backed by FIFA. There's over $6 billion worth of funding for this new tournament, meaning huge cash prizes and bonuses for teams included in it. It could start as early as 2022. Infantino, the president of FIFA, has already distanced himself slightly from this situation, seeing some of the backlash. But essentially, once again, it seems that Liverpool and Manchester United are right behind this bid to try and create a super Champions League, if you will. And teams from England, Spain, Italy, France, and Germany, they're all included in this. And the report calls it a bombshell which could reshape the future of European football. So again, they're trying to name this a European Premier League. So it's not going to rival the Premier League. Teams will still be playing domestically, but this is more about having more of the big teams from countries across Europe play against each other in a very lucrative setting. So Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City, and Tottenham are the other Premier League teams who are reportedly in amongst those talks about this. Gents, this is a lot to break down. We've obviously just had the Project Big Picture situation in England with Premier League teams unanimously saying, no, we don't want any of that. What are your thoughts on this situation? Because this to me could seem like it's a bit of posturing, right? With these big teams, the Champions League talks about how that competition is going to look in the future. That's coming up in the next few weeks. And then we're going to have further decisions on that in early 2021 about expanding that competition or how money's split up and distributed. So, Nick, how do you make sense of this? And on the face of it, what do you think? Do you think this is a good idea?
My gut instinct is that I'm scared, an element of fear, because I kind of love the system right now. Where we can discuss, should there be a League Cup? And what makes me more scared is that this comes, a week after that whole EFL shakeup video led by Liverpool, story led by Liverpool and Manchester United that came out. And why I worry about that is, was that all designed? Hey, let's free up the schedule a little bit more for this other thing we're working on. So, maybe it's because I don't support one of the big boys or something like that. But I have all I could think of when you said that was fear. I know the Premier League's going to be fine. I know domestic leagues are going to be fine. But otherwise, does anyone really have a problem with what we watch right now on a month-to-month basis? That's my question.
Yeah, the
Andy,
only
do you
people
have a
that have a
problem with that?
problem with it seem to be these really big clubs who want more money.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to come down to at the end of the day. And you know, as I guess the one of us that is, you know, most closely interested to one of the big clubs with Spurs, I also dislike this. I'll even go so far as to say I hate it. I don't see from a competition standpoint what this provides. And I just kind of think about, let's put it this way. It's a closed system Champions League. It's essentially everything that's wrong with MLS and what holds MLS back from being a better and bigger league that grows on the global stage. I understand that you want to get, you know, the big 4 or 8 or 16 teams against one another at the end of the competition, and that's going to, you know, more eyeballs and more money to be made and everything. You kind of already get that as it is in the current system, as Nick says, but at least you get it when you do. It's on merit. It's not just you're guaranteed that place to be in there. So I really dislike this. At the end of the day, you know, money is going to decide absolutely everything. We mean very little. People that, you know, that watch or cover, you know, these leagues and everything. It's not about us. It's about these big clubs. And I do find it really interesting that it's United and Liverpool again working together as kind of the, you know, the historic, the legacy clubs in England, trying to kind of shake up and reorder the way that we do things, not only in England with the football league and everything, but also now across Europe as well. I hope this doesn't happen because, like Nick said, the Champions League as it is, it's just about as good as it could possibly be.
And even though my opinion and other people's opinion doesn't mean anything, Andy, as you said there, in terms of the future, I am going to propose. I've seen some other proposals about the talks with UEFA and the current clubs, how that could be changed from 2024 onwards in the Champions League. And one of the proposals is to have an extra 4 teams, so like 36 teams per season. You increase the groups to 6 teams per group, and you have 10 group stage games rather than 6. So you have more chance for bigger teams to meet each other in the group stage early on. I don't know if I like that either, to be honest. I love the fact that, I mean, the strong teams are going to be playing stronger teams later in the competition. So at the latter stages, you look forward to those big European nights when it's the quarterfinals, semi-final, final, seeing those heavyweights go head to head. And some of the best memories I can remember from the Europa League or Champions League is underdogs upsetting the big boys, you know. Speaking as a fan of a club that made it to the Europa League and knocked off a giant like Inter Milan in the group stage recently, that's one of the best moments I've ever had as a fan. So I think that to wrap this segment up, this is going to be something we really talk about a lot in the coming weeks and months, because different ideas will be floated out there. These big teams generally speak a lot about these things. But now perhaps this is a byproduct of the purse strings being tightened a little bit and the financial situation around the world, and the bigger clubs maybe being like, you know what, this could get us our argument that we need to go to the highest bidder. We need more investment. We need to shake the status quo up a little bit. So yeah, the breaking news from a report on Sky News in the UK, our partners here at NBC, is that FIFA are potentially behind a European Premier League, which could start as early as the 2022 season. $6 billion worth of investment, 18 teams, a lot of talks going on, and we certainly haven't heard the last of this one, lads. Next breaking news segment, and this is something that's going to rumble on for a long, long time. Virgil van Dijk, his injury, obviously had knee surgery, is expected to be out for the rest of the season, a crushing, damaging blow to Liverpool, both in their Premier League defense and their Champions League hopes as well. How do Liverpool move forward from this? That's the big question I want to focus on here, because there's a lot of talk about, do they need to buy a new centre-back in January? Can their current defenders or Fabinho really share the load? And then they've only got, you know, Joe Gomez and Joel Matip. Fabinho can play there. And after that, we're looking at an 18-year-old Sepp van der Berg who hasn't played a single second in the Premier League for Liverpool. So I want to kick this off by saying I think Fabinho can be the answer, because I'm not convinced that Gomez and Matip will actually stay fit, both of them, for the whole season. And I spoke to Jurgen Klopp after Fabinho played away at Chelsea as a centre-back, emergency centre-back, if you will. He was raving about him, absolutely loved his performance, smiling from ear to ear. But I think Liverpool got some big defensive injuries. I'm not quite sure which direction they they take here, lads? I mean, Nick Mendola, how do Liverpool move forward after this crushing blow of losing Van Dijk for many, many months?
Yeah, the solution is extremely weird. And I think, as I wrote about at ProSoccerTalk, we're going to need to see how they react the first time that a player looks to his left or right or behind him and Virgil van Dijk isn't there, because he has been a mainstay. I think the answer is going to have to be both January and formation, because even if Fabinho was always the plan as the next center back, because maybe we're looking at something tactically. Maybe it's we look at what happened with Fernandinho last year. There's just so many comparisons to be made there. But is it something where I don't know that Trent Alexander-Arnold especially, but also Andy Robertson can be at their very, very best if they have to worry more about who's in the middle. So is this something where when they have the ball, Fabinho drops back, there's three at the back, and now our fullbacks can go forward? Maybe. But tactics, I think this is all about Jurgen Klopp. This is his point, not his chance. He's proven so much, but just the latest chance for him to show us just how special he is.
It's dominoes, right? Every little thing, every change affects the change next to it, the person next to it. You know, one player has to play a little bit more defensive. Well, then who's going to provide that width in attack if the fullbacks can't get forward as well? So it's going to affect the attack as well. It's not just going to be defensively that Liverpool are going to have to adjust without Virgil van Dijk. So yeah, it is really interesting. And I can't be the only one that kind of, I don't know, appreciates or I guess notices the parallels between Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola now, with the injuries to a center back, the center back, the star center back, and then your defensive midfielder, Fernandinho, now Fabinho having to slide in there and kind of deputize. You know, it's very, very interesting to kind of compare what Man City went through last season as the titled defenders and now Liverpool this season as titled defenders. We know how it went for City. The only difference I think this season is going to be that there's no one ready to step up and blow the league away in the way that Liverpool did last season. And so they might be able to kind of piece together, I think it's 16 games they'll play before the January window opens, a little less than half the season, a little bit less than normal, given the kind of the compact start to the season. So they might just be able to get themselves in a position where if they can identify someone for January and get them in and have them settle quickly, that'll obviously be important. Then, you know, they could be, I think they will be there regardless, but I think they could still be looked at as maybe even title favorites at that point.
I think this underlines probably what we've been thinking would happen for a while, right? They've upgraded, obviously, Diogo Jota's come in for the next stage of their attacking and give them an extra option. Thiago's come in the central midfield. And I think centre-back was really another area where if you could possibly improve Liverpool, that person who plays alongside Van Dijk was what they needed next to go out and spend a lot of money on, because they're not just buying players for the sake of it, are they? They're, you know, Alisson coming in, Van Dijk coming in, Thiago, Jota. These are quality players that will start right away. And I think now what this does is accelerate that by 6 months. Instead of going out and looking at some of the names that have been linked to it, Ben White from Brighton, obviously Dayot Upamecano from RB Leipzig. Instead of going and getting them next summer, they make the move in January. They may have to pay more, but that can actually help their hopes in the Premier League and Champions League for the rest of the season. And then those players are up and running in the system when Van Dijk comes back, which looks like being next summer and ready for the next season, which all signs point to that. But I think I just want to underline his importance, because that needs to happen. Liverpool's win rate with Van Dijk, he's played 130 games so far, it stands at 70%. Without him, in the 13 games without him, so he hasn't missed an awful lot of games. He rarely misses games for injury. The win rate without him is 46%. That just shows you how important it is, even for a team like Liverpool who win a lot of games. So I'm really worried if they don't bring the right player in January, then, you know, it's going to have an even bigger impact. And let's not forget, Liverpool haven't been great defensively, even with Van Dijk early in the season. So the fact that they're now losing him, Alisson's out injured, and Adrian's not been playing well in goal, there's a lot of problems there for Jurgen Klopp to sort out early in the season. So the big news is he's out, a massive injury, and now we're going to see what kind of plan they have going forward. So, Nick, any more final thoughts? 30 seconds to wrap it up on Van Dijk.
Yeah, Joe, I just wonder if maybe this is an opportunity to see Trent Alexander-Arnold in the midfield, maybe in a, not to be crazy, but a Pirlo role. It's just my wild card thing to think about is a more steady right back and get your distributor a little bit more advanced and in the mix. So they talk about it with England all the time, right? So maybe with Liverpool.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Liverpool shakes things up. They certainly need to. And obviously, not ideal to lose games like they have been and dropping points early in the season, but far from ideal to lose Virgil van Dijk, especially in the way that they have done, so unnecessary early in the season. So next up on Pro Soccer Talk, we're going to focus on 3 things we've learned over the last week in the Premier League. So head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com with these 3 lads here. We'll have 3 things on each Premier League game, analysis-wise. We're not scared and shy of giving our opinion. I'm going to open this one up. I think the title race is open. That's the thing I have learned over the last 7 days. And wide open, in fact. I think any team from the sort of traditional Big Six, and I'm going to chuck Everton into the mix as well, because even though they didn't play well against Liverpool, they still ground it out, really, and got a draw there. And I think it's very even. Man City are the favourites for me. I like the tactical flexibility they showed against Arsenal with the 3-4-1, whatever you want to call it. They were flipping between back 3 and back 4 when they had the ball, when they didn't have the ball. I think Ruben Diaz and Nathan Ake make a big difference to this Guardiola side. So they'll be my favourites, but I think we are in for, I'm going to say it, the most exciting title race we've had in probably nearly a decade, because usually it's a 2-horse race, maybe even a 3-horse race. But realistically, I think there's 5 or 6 teams who going into January will still be in the Premier League title hunt. So Andy, what did you learn this weekend, mate? I know there's a lot out there, but it certainly seems like we're now in the crux of the season where we're starting to find out a lot more about these teams with a bigger sample size.
Yeah, I think I learned that it's time to give Aston Villa a little bit of love and respect for what they've done to start this season. So that's what we're going to do today. There is one team in the Premier League now with a 100% record. Everton dropped points on the weekend, and it feels like no one is talking about them. And I think it's because, okay, well, it's Aston Villa. They're going to fall away. Eventually, they'll be down where they belong at the end of the season and all these things. But every time they play, the conversation after the game is always about the other team. And I find that a little bit interesting. They beat Liverpool 7-2. The champions are falling apart. They beat Leicester 1-0 this weekend. Well, they didn't have Vardy or Soyuncu or Ndidi. Okay, fine. They still beat them. They beat Fulham 3-0. Fulham might be the worst team in Premier League history. They beat Sheffield United 1-0. What's wrong with Sheffield United? It's never about Villa. The only team that scored against them this season is Liverpool, and they scored 7 against them. So I just want to say, Aston Villa, we see you. Keep it up.
Fair play. Nick, what did you learn, mate?
I got a theory, guys, on the big six weirdness, and I think it's down to center backs. And let me explain that. Over the past couple of years, we've seen changeover or uncertainty pretty much everywhere. Linchpins are gone. Vertonghen, Koscielny, company, even Van Dijk now. And almost every team has a young cog sorting it out. Ruben Diaz, Gabriel, and let's not forget Davinson Sanchez, I believe 24 years old as well. So plus whatever's happening at Chelsea and Manchester United. And this is why what I learned this weekend, I'm not any less optimistic about Spurs despite 3-3 at West Ham, because the argument that Jose Mourinho teams usually defend better is still valid and perhaps underlines the point. Also, my favorite stat of the weekend, you guys know I love the advanced stats. The XG numbers, expected goals on Harry Kane, they're not, he's doing fine. Like he has the same amount of goals, more or less, than he's expected to get, and he's producing at this level, which means the performances have been legit. So center backs worried across the league with the big boys. Tottenham, not as worried.
Wow, yeah. I didn't think we'd be saying that about Tottenham after that performance this weekend, especially in the last 8 minutes. Andy, I know we're going to do our best not to bring that up as much, but it was, a pretty incredible week to learn a lot about these teams. And I think now we're starting to see general patterns emerge about if we're concerned about them defensively, concerned about them going forward, and what we're going to do. And basically, I think most teams right now are still trying to figure it out, but we are in a much better position to analyze the bigger picture. And we're only 5 weeks into the season. So I think it's really showing that progression from Project Restart into the new season, and showing that a lot of what we knew about these teams, we kind of knew it going into this campaign. So next segment I want to focus on this week is my Premier League player power rankings. I'm going to go through my top 5 from week 5. up at ProSoccerTalk and NBCSports.com. I have my top 20, so pick those to pieces, as Nick and Andy will do here. But from 5 to 1, I'm going to rank them. At number 5, I have James Rodriguez. He remains steady in the top 5, had an assist for Everton, was pretty silky, didn't get on the ball as much as I would have liked to have seen him in the Merseyside derby draw against Liverpool. But I think he just had that extra bit of class to help Everton grind out a draw against Liverpool, remain unbeaten. Number 4, Ross Barkley. I mean, I had to have some Aston Villa players in here. They are absolutely flying at the moment. Superb late goal against Leicester to win. And his partnership with Jack Grealish, and we talked about it with Ollie Watkins as well. Those three are really, with McGinn as well, I have to mention him. That quartet there really, if they stay fit, then Aston Villa could be in the European conversation this season. So Barkley looks like a really shrewd signing, obviously on loan from Chelsea for the season. If he can stay fit, he's that X factor that Villa needed alongside Grealish. Number 3, Bruno Fernandes. He just dug deep. I love this performance against Newcastle. Absolute talisman, time and time again. Hasn't been a good start to the season for United, but it has been a good one for Bruno. Amazing goal. It was kind of, I heard someone describe it as like a FIFA finish in terms of he just clipped it into the top corner and off the, the angle, the upper 90. Obviously had that missed penalty kick, which don't expect that from him, but probably was going to happen. There was stutter steps in the way he waits to the last minute. Had another goal, obviously was ruled out for offside. So he was on fire, been given the captain's armband in Maguire's absence against Paris Saint-Germain for Man United. So that was a big moment for him. You could see how much that meant to him. And I think if there's one player that sort of typifies their team in the Premier League, it's Bruno Fernandes. If he plays well, Man United will push themselves up the table and really be challengers this season. Number 2, I've gone with Timo Werner, new entry up there in the top 5, 2 goals and assist against Southampton. Electric pace, tore him to shreds in the first half. But like most of Chelsea, was a little bit lackluster in the second half. But I think we're starting to see the best from him now. Had a good international break with Germany, scoring goals. And finally, he's got his first goals in the Premier League. And I don't think he's been performing that badly before that. I think he's been really good and a key part with Havertz and now Pulisic and Ziyech coming in. So many attacking options for Chelsea. Just need to sort it out at the other end of the pitch. And then at number 1, he remains in top spot, Harry Kane. 2 goals, wonderful assist, superb form so far this season. As Nick said, his expected goals, I mean, it's kind of on track, which is crazy to think about, and how well he's been playing so far this season. But it just shows you in the run of play how good Harry Kane has been so far. So he's top of my player power rankings. Lads, pick the bones out of that. Anybody else that you would think should be in that top 5 after the last weekend?
You dropped a couple out from the last few weeks that I find a little curious. The 2 leading goal scorers in the Premier League right now, Heung-min Son, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, both scored on the weekend and somehow fell out of the rankings. Son also had an assist in the game for Spurs. So, maybe a little bit of recency bias going on here. Ross Barkley's played, just twice for Villa? Now, he's had huge impact for them, but Calvert-Lewin, Son, been doing it all season. So, just calm down with the, the recency bias, Joe. That's all I'm saying. Now, I do appreciate the love for Villa, though. So well done.
Yeah, I have to say both of those players are in my honourable mentions list. I can print this off and maybe show it to you guys. Like I will.
Okay.
Find a way of taking a photo of this, and I had Thiago Alcantara in there, Sterling, Sergio Reguilon, Michael Keane, Rashford, Edison. There's only 5 players I can get in the top 5, lads. But all I'm going to say is look out for the top 20 on ProSoccerTalk and NBCSports.com because a lot of those players are making an appearance. Nick, anything else you'd like to add on the power rankings, mate?
Loved Reguilon. Great shout. Thiago Alcantara hit a pass, and it's never going to show up on a highlight reel, but he hit a pass. Maybe it will. He hit a 60-yard pass through like 4 dudes the other day that blew my mind. Speaking of recency bias, and it doesn't get much more recent than this, I just want to shout out Wesley Fofana from Leicester. It's not going to show up because they lost the game, but he doesn't turn 20 until December. And on his Premier League and Leicester debut, 9 clearances, 6 interceptions, 3 tackles, 12 of 16 duels won, 83% passing, and no fault on the goal. I loved him. I don't know if I've seen a better debut from a young defender in my time watching the Premier League.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Wesley Fofana is the new Virgil van Dijk, and Liverpool should probably just try and buy him in January.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brendan Rodgers would be fine with that, right? Okay, so they're my player power rankings for week 5 in the season. A lot of movement early in the season, but there are a couple of players who have been pretty steady in the top 5. So head over to ProSoccerTalk and NBCSports.com, join the conversation, and let us know who you think deserves to be at the top pack of the Premier League players so far this season. Gents, let's move ahead and look to week 6 in the new season. We have previews, team news, stream links, the schedule, everything you need up at Pro Soccer Talk ahead of another big week in the Premier League. I'm going to start with focusing on, I think it's the biggest game of the week and maybe one of the biggest games of the season, Manchester United against Chelsea. For me, there is a lot of interesting things here. We have to look at, obviously, United's poor defensive form and also Chelsea's poor defensive form. And I'm going to open the floor here because I don't think that we thought that they would both defend this badly. Chelsea obviously added a few key parts there, but they've both been shocking defensively early in the season. So Nick Mendola, Man United, Chelsea, what are you looking forward to on this one?
I'm going to go as far as to call this the closest you can get to a must-win label in week 6. Chelsea, if they drop points, will have dropped points in 4 of 6 matches to start the season. If Manchester United does, it'll be 3 of 5. This is nuts. United's numbers are not good in almost any area this year that doesn't involve Bruno Fernandes. So I look at United being away to PSG on Tuesday. I look at Chelsea facing Sevilla. How do you blend which team has more depth? I think that's Chelsea. But then after the weekend, because of this schedule, we mentioned it before with the Champions League, Leipzig for Manchester United and a trip to Krasnodar for Chelsea. So even if it is a bit easier, we saw with Spurs going to Macedonia and Bulgaria, these games are tough. So I think you're looking at one manager potentially being under extreme fire within 8-9 days of today.
Yeah, I'm just watching. Oh, sorry, Joe. I'm just watching to see if they're still playing for him. At what point do they stop playing for him? Because there was there were shades of it on the weekend against Newcastle, and I know they pulled it out late and they scored the 3 goals in the final 10 minutes. But the body language wasn't great, and from a lot of players and from key important players that he really needs to have standout performances for them. So the players are going to save his job or send him packing. So I think it's only a matter of time at this point, and I really favor Chelsea in this one.
You favour Chelsea. I was going to say, I just think that Chelsea have enough going forward to just almost abandon defensive responsibilities at this point and just say, you know what, we're going to be the most intense, attacking, exciting team, and neutrals are going to want to switch on each week to watch us play. We're going to win games 5-3, 6-4, whatever. I think that's probably their best course of action. Seeing how they defended against Southampton, who played well, but they should have been out of sight, Chelsea. They shouldn't have let them back into that game. And how many times have we said that under Frank Lampard? So as much as Solskjaer's under pressure, with the money he spent, I think there is that, you feel the pressure ramping up on Lampard and Chelsea early in the season. And if they don't have a good result in the Champions League against Sevilla, then all of a sudden, Azpilicueta has already come out and said, we haven't been playing to our level. We haven't been playing well enough. And then as soon as players start to say that, especially someone's experienced and club captain like Azpilicueta, you know that they're not happy with how things are going. So, yeah, as Nick kicked this off with saying, this is one of the biggest sort of early indications of how this season is going to go for both Chelsea and Man United. Obviously, a huge, huge game. Can't wait for it on Saturday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you watch that one. Okay. Andy Edwards, focusing on Arsenal against Leicester City. What are you looking forward to in that game, mate?
My big question with Arsenal, and I think it's probably something that we'll see over the course of the entire season, especially since they have, a first-time manager in Mikel Arteta. Are Arsenal fans happy with the way this team is playing? And I don't mean the results or the performances, but I mean how they are set up to play. It's not the Arsenal way, if you will. It's not the very best fluid stuff of the very best Arsene Wenger years. I'm gonna say it's negative. It's just it's boxy. It's just not attractive to watch. There's nothing about it that you look and say, this team, I can really see how they progress. I can really see how they control games. I can really see how they dominate teams. I don't see any of that. I just kind of see a team that takes the field and they play like they're, a 10th or 12th place team. That's kind of the tactical setup that Arteta has gone with. And I understand you kind of have to, establish yourself as a new manager at a club and everything. And you at Arsenal, especially, you almost have to kind of rebuild the culture and everything there. And I do think they've needed a little bit more kind of a defensive mind with that team the last handful of years. But have they gone a little bit too far? They offered next to nothing against City on the weekend, and I know City very, very good, but Arsenal didn't look like they belonged in the same kind of conversation with a team like City in that game. And that's just, even at their very worst the last few years, especially against the big teams, they always showed up. They always put in a tough performance, and they were tough to beat on those days. And then they would go lose, to a bottom half team the next weekend. But they didn't have that against City. And so I'm just a little bit curious, at what point does Mikel Arteta kind of take the shackles off of some players and say, okay, you've got a little bit more freedom to work with, a little bit more creativity maybe, and we could just be a little bit more well-rounded of a team. It's interesting from the perspective that they've gone the other way and everything. So I'm just going to be watching that, I think, obviously this weekend against Leicester, but for the most part, the season as a whole.
I want to focus on Liverpool against Sheffield United purely because, as we talked about, Virgil van Dijk being out, who starts at centre-back? Does Fabinho play there? What's the situation? What's the mindset going to be? Because Jurgen Klopp almost seemed a little bit shell-shocked, shall we say, like after losing Van Dijk. That's the last possible thing he ever would have wanted. I mean, you talk about Messi at Barcelona, or Ronaldo at Juventus, or someone like De Bruyne at Man City. I would argue that losing Van Dijk has a bigger impact on Liverpool than any of those players being out for their respective teams. I mean, he is absolutely essential to the way they defend, not just as a unit, but the entire team as well. So seeing how they recover from that mentally, not just on the pitch, is really interesting for me. And Sheffield United, they got a lot to prove. Obviously, struggled early in the season, especially for goals. But I'm just wondering if Ryan Brewster, after being one of the brightest attacking talents Liverpool had for a long time, can't force his way in front of that wonderful forward three that they have. So he's gone to Sheffield United. It's almost written in the stars, right? He's going to return to Anfield and bang in a last-minute winner. And
read my mind.
Yeah, right. I mean, have a flutter on that. I don't know. Head over to the Pick'em and pick Sheffield United to beat Liverpool, because I can see an upset there purely because this season has been bonkers, and it would certainly fit the narrative of everything that's happened so far. So another couple of games I want to focus on is unbeaten Everton away at Southampton, who've been pretty good in recent weeks. They've kind of recovered quite well. So I'm interested to see how Danny Ings and Shea Adams get on against that Everton defence. Jordan Pickford, again, how he recovers from all of the criticism he's been facing in recent weeks. I'll be at St Mary's for that one. So I'm looking forward to having a good close look at Everton in person and seeing how Ancelotti operates, and defensively especially. I think going forward, we all know, and in midfield, that they're pretty settled. And then Burnley against Tottenham. Andy, I can see the sign behind you on your shelf there. Obviously, the response, again, from Tottenham after being 3-0 up and throwing it away against West Ham. Burnley away is not the place you really want to have to go to make a statement the next game. Of course, this isn't Burnley that we've seen in previous seasons, but I saw enough against West Brom with Wood and Barnes up front. McNeil, just slowly getting back to what we know they are, Burnley. Solid, tough to beat. And it's going to be a test. It's going to be a test for Tottenham, especially after Europa League and travelling and just rotating that squad around and seeing if Gareth Bale's going to start, because the last time he came on the pitch with Tottenham 3-0 up, didn't work out well for him, did it? So anything else, guys, before we finish? Anything else that you are looking forward to? Villa Leeds is a sneaky good game, I guess, as well.
Joe, there's no duds this week. I mean, really, I think we can all admit, as much as we love the Premier League, there are games that you kind of hope, Burnley, West Brom this week. I hope I don't have to cover that one. Like you have to admit that sometimes. But Villa Leeds starts us off on Friday. Even Man City, West Ham, with the performances that the Irons have put in this year. Fulham Palace is a London derby. I love this week for us. I love this week for people watching the Premier League. So that's just how I feel. Very excited.
Wolves Newcastle as well.
Yeah.
On
Steve
that's
Bruce,
that's a really good. I think I'll say this very quickly. I think both of your teams, Newcastle and Southampton, are wildly underrated. I think they're much better than people are giving them credit for, and I even think they're better than the results they've gotten at this point. And I know the results, kind of the results say who you are at the end of the season, at the end of the day. But I think those are two very, very good teams. And come the end of the season with a little bit of progression and some stability, I guess, that actually exists at those two clubs right now, kind of in a weird time around the world and around the league. I could really see them pushing on and both finish in top half. So, Newcastle away to Wolves, I kind of like them to get something out of it. I watched Wolves on Monday. I saw nothing that says that Newcastle can't go there and get a point, if not 3.
There you go. A harmonious end to Pro Soccer Talk. Andy, can't do it much better than that, mate. So thanks for joining us this week. Remember, you can watch all the games live across the NBC Sports platforms at Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com. We'll have you covered all the latest news and analysis, not just from the Premier League, but Europa League, Champions League, MLS, anything else in the soccer world. And we all look forward to speaking to you soon here on Pro Soccer Talk. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe. Make sure you subscribe to watch highlights all season long and always join us every weekend at 7 a.m. on NBCSN for Premier League mornings. Plus, make sure you subscribe to Peacock Premium as well, where you can watch exclusively live 175 games and same-day on-demand replays of all 380 Premier League matches as well.